Finishing up a game from last week, tied 8-8 in the eighth. 8 cubed there. Carter Strong lays down a bunt that's mishandled at first, and Strong gonna beat it out. Everybody's safe. Now bases loaded, and Will Tornis on the bump. Throws a wild pitch in the first run of the inning. Will score. Warren goes ahead 9-8. And it didn't end there for the Tigers. Cody Eating at the plate draws a walk, and another run will come in to score. Warriors not having to do much with the bats. Bases still loaded. Aiden Lipscomb grounds the ball to third, and it is bobbled. And Lipscomb will beat the throw. Everybody safe. Warriors score their 8th run of the inning. No hits to speak of. Marietta gets it. Their first out here as Corey Floyd lines the ball to center, and Owen Riley makes the catch and then doubles up the runner at second base. We go to the bottom of the 8th. Eating gets the scoreless frame and the grounder to end it as Warren goes on to win 16-8.